At his granddaughter's funeral, the old man felt that something was wrong and opened the coffin. At the funeral of his granddaughter, sensing something was terribly wrong, the grandfather approached the coffin closely. While people around him wept, bidding farewell to the little girl forever, the old man carefully examined the grave. Suddenly, he heard barely audible groans, and the truth that was soon revealed shocked all the witnesses of what happened. In a small town lived Henry Robinson, a 60-year-old mechanic known for his kind heart and cheerful demeanor. He cherished his only son, Douglas, and his daughter-in-law, Evelyn. But tragedy struck when Douglas and Evelyn were killed in a car accident, leaving their 7-year-old daughter, Megan, orphaned. Heartbroken by the loss, Henry was overcome with grief, spending days in tears and inconsolable sorrow. When Megan moved in with him, she became Henry's guiding light. Determined to fill the void left by her parents, he showered her with love and care. The two became inseparable, spending their days walking in the park, playing games, or simply sitting together, sharing heartfelt conversations about everything under the sun. One rainy day, as they were walking home from school, they suddenly heard a faint, plaintive whine. Megan was the first to spot a tiny puppy trembling beneath a bush. The poor creature was drenched, its fur matted into dirty tangles. One of its paws appeared dislocated, and its large brown eyes reflected a mix of fear and pain. Megan's heart clenched at the sight of the unfortunate creature. Without a second thought, she gently picked up the puppy, soothing it with tender words, and began to warm it with her body heat. Henry was also moved by the sight. Pity for the unfortunate puppy reawakened paternal feelings in him. Without much thought, he decided to take the poor creature home. There, they bandaged its paw, fed the puppy milk, and laid it in a basket on a soft pad. The puppy began to get used to its new home, and within a week, it had seriously recovered and healed. Its brown eyes sparkled with happiness, and its tail always wagged when it saw its new kind owners. Megan named her first pet Brie. With Brie's arrival, their small family grew even closer. The dog never strayed far from the girl, adoring her young owner boundlessly. They frolicked in the yard, tumbling in the soft green grass, and sometimes, when Megan fell asleep, Brie would climb onto her bed and curl up at her feet, guarding the little girl's sleep. Henry watched their friendship with affection, glad that his granddaughter no longer felt lonely. But one day, a terrible tragedy occurred. Megan was playing with her friends on the playground. At one point, a ball rolled onto the roadway, and without thinking, the girl dashed after it onto the road, not noticing an approaching car. A dreadful collision occurred. Megan was hit by a car. She was left lying on the road unconscious in a pool of her own blood. Henry never thought he would experience a greater sorrow than the death of his son. Seeing his granddaughter on a hospital gurney, he was speechless with horror. Doctors fought for the girl's life, but later pronounced her dead from severe internal injuries and significant blood loss. For Henry and Brie, this was the darkest day of their lives. The grandfather wept inconsolably, remembering the happy moments spent with Megan. Brie whined pitifully, sensing her owner's sorrow but not fully understanding what had happened, and naively hoping that any moment, happy Megan would open the door of their home and tightly hug her beloved dog. The next day, Megan's funeral was to be held. Grieving, Henry brought Brie along to say goodbye to his granddaughter forever. The farewell ceremony was an excruciating ordeal for the grandfather. He wept bitterly, seeing the miniature white coffin with Megan's body. Brie was also overwhelmed by the atmosphere of grief, wagging her tail and whining loudly. But when it was time to close the coffin lid, Brie suddenly went crazy. She took a defensive stance, bristled, and barked furiously. Henry tried to calm her, but the dog became even more aggressive and rushed to the coffin, deafening everyone around with her ringing bark. The bewildered grandfather approached closer and suddenly heard a barely audible groan somewhere very close. Henry's heart pounded wildly, feeling a still very faint flash of hope. People around tried to pull the old man away, thinking that the grief had driven him mad. But the brave Brie stood in defense of her owner, growling threateningly at anyone who tried to get close. Eventually, Henry managed to open the coffin and couldn't believe his eyes. Megan was alive. Her little body was barely visibly rising and fallen with her breathing. Megan was in a comatose state, but she was alive. Henry screamed loudly and fell to his knees beside the coffin, unable to hold back his tears. Brie, as if understanding that her owner had not died, darted around, issuing a triumphant bark and jumping on Meghan, tirelessly trying to lick the girl. Soon, it was discovered that the doctors had made a terrible mistake in diagnosis, considering the girl dead. In reality, she had fallen into a deep coma, similar to catalepsy, a state of complete immobility, in all respects resembling death. But thanks to Bray's sensitivity, who instinctively sensed life in Meghan's body, the family was saved from a terrible tragedy. Meghan was promptly sent to the hospital, where she gradually regained consciousness. The first person she saw when she woke up was her grandfather, Henry, who had not left her bedside for a minute. And right beside him, as always, was the loyal Bree, pressed against the bed and gently licking the girl's hands. Doctors described Meghan's recovery as nothing short of a miracle, as she had been on the brink of death. After several months of intensive rehabilitation, she made a full recovery and had no memory of the tragic accident that nearly took her life. However, she vividly remembered the peaceful moment when she had fallen asleep in the park with Bree by her side. For Henry, who had endured 2 devastating losses, this moment felt like a second chance at life. He vowed never to let his beloved granddaughter out of his sight again, and Bree was hailed as a miracle dog in the town. Her loyalty and instincts had saved the family from yet another irreplaceable loss, solidifying her place as their guardian and protector. From that moment on, Meghan, Henry, and Bree became inseparable. They often went on walks together, with Meghan lovingly hugging Bree, who had become her true guardian angel. Bree returned the affection by gently licking Meghan's tiny hands, her loyalty unwavering. Watching them, Henry often smiled through tears of joy, reflecting on how, despite the sorrows and hardships he had endured, the most precious thing in his life remained, his family, which he cherished with all his heart. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.